Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk, a traditional Wiccan podcast where we will discuss topics affecting the pagan community from a traditionalist perspective. The topics we discuss are picked from our magical hat, and the discussions are unscripted. The talks will be led by Lord Chase Knight Smith, Elder and High Priest of Third Degree, and he's joined by Keegan, First Degree Priestess. Pagan Coffee Talk is brought to you by Life Temple and Seminary.
Welcome to Pagan Coffee Talk. I'm Keegan, and as always, Lord Knight. You ready for our topic?
Sure.
It's a goodie.
We're doomed.
Religious cultural appropriation.
Oh, this is going to be a short topic.
Maybe. Maybe not.
Wow, we're just saying craft. How can we, culturally appropriate anything? We're all craft.
Well, using symbols when you don't know what they mean. Exploiting heritage that's not your own.
See, I don't really feel that way.
Okay, well, let me give you the definition here. By definition, cultural appropriation is the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the custom, practices, and ideas of one people or society by members other than, and typically, more dominant.
I got that. So who decides what's ethical and moral on this?
It's a good question. Well, if you think about just cultural appropriation, so you have someone dressing in, say, African wear, but they have no African descent. That would be cultural appropriation. So with religious cultural appropriation, if we don't have a connection, say I wanted to practice voodoo, but I have no history connected there, or Native American or whatever, is that, or our Celtic background, if we can't prove that we have a Celtic history, is that offensive?
See, I don't see that in craft. I mean, we all have mutual respect for one another, because technically we culturally appropriate all deities. You're talking about a slippery slope here, because if we look back at the history of things, let's look at the church. Technically, they culturally appropriated certain holidays.
Yes.
And actually placed their holidays on our holidays to make it easier for the transference or the conversion of the masses.
Well, is that offensive to you?
No, it's not. Who am I to say, they're wrong or right?
Okay. So the Christian church brought in a Christmas tree. History says that is a pagan tradition, the Yule log, the Yule tree.
Right. Those are.
And that's, the Christians doing it is not offensive to you, or anyone who wants to do it is not offensive to you.
No. I mean, because we're back to, why do I have a right to judge them?
Does it bother you that they might not know why they're doing it?
It'd be nice for them to know, but I don't think the masses have a clue. Look at Santa Claus. We're talking about the Holly King here.
Right.
But, I mean, it's not an exact replica of the Holly King.
So if you're not offended, and the Christian church, I think people will agree, took a lot of the pagan symbols and a lot of their holidays and turned them into their own, and you're not offended by that, so others shouldn't be either.
Again, I'm not going to tell what individual people do. I mean, I'm not going to get up in arms and tramp up and down the street saying we need our holidays back or something. It's not something I actually think about. Do you?
No, I don't. I do what's best for me and to help my spiritual growth. And if bringing a Christmas tree in your house is something you want to do, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Right. Now, as far as in the pagan community as a whole, or in craft community, I think the majority of us just think it as craft, that it is our culture. regardless of where it came from.
What about people outside of Crafte who say you can't do that? You don't have any, ancestral roots in Africa, so you can't practice voodoo, or you can't use, Papa Legba or something like that.
Well, I mean, you're standing outside of Crafte, though.
Right.
You're not part of the Crafte community.
Well, can you see how that might be offensive?
I could see where somebody might perceive it as offensive, but, I'm not going to get up in arms if I go down to New Orleans and see a voodoo priestess doing some of the rituals we do. If I'm not going to get offended over the Christians, why should I get offended over that?
Right.
We're still talking about spiritual paths here.
Well, people don't have a trademark on deities, do they?
No. Ooh, no, this is my God. You can't worship. What?
Right.
That'd be like me going, oh, no, you're not Celtic, so therefore, you can't worship the Tuatha De Danann. Who am I to sit there and tell somebody what they can and cannot do?
Well, what would you tell someone who came to you and said, I am Celtic, I do have Celtic heritage, and it's very offensive that you guys take on that word, that claim, that you don't own. You can't prove you're Celtic, and it upsets me. I'm offended by it.
Sorry, and...
It's a personal problem.
Yeah, it's a personal problem. I ran across somebody like that said, I couldn't do a certain practice or something. I would literally tell them, that's a personal problem. You need to work on that. Why does it offend you? What is it about it that actually offends you?
I think a lot of times people have it in their head that if you're not bloodline, you can't prove that you are related or some sort of ancestry there, then you can't appreciate it.
Well, I'm still back to, like you said, it isn't like anybody has a trademark on any religion.
And you don't own it.
No. Just as easily as I could get off of here from you and go down to the local synagogue and say, hey, I want to become Jewish.
I would like to be there when that happens.
I could do the same thing and go to the Catholic Church, decide to become Muslim tomorrow. Are they going to kick me out of that religion because I don't have roots in that?
I don't know.
I know a lot of people that started out a different religion and married somebody of a different religion, so they convert to that religion.
Yeah, I do too.
A Baptist woman marries a Jewish man. She decides to become Jewish. In my head, I don't see where there's a problem on there. Just because we're talking about different cultures and stuff like that, I mean, what can't we learn from each other? Don't get me wrong, yeah, I get a little bit more offended when, I got somebody who's out there claiming to be a witch, and they're doing it more for shock value.
Would that be a form of religious cultural appropriation?
You're not doing it to actually be part of the religion. And these are the people that don't really follow what in the world we do or have a clue what in the world we do. They've read one book and, oh, yeah, that's it.
Oh, is that not how you do it?
No, I mean, there still has to be some training there. The majority of these people are going to be still finding their way. When that happens, it's sort of more like, do you really believe in this?
You bring up a good point.
I don't necessarily consider that a cultural appropriation. I consider this is what the public looks at, and this might be the only exposure some people might get.
Right.
That's like going down the street and you got that one car in front of you that's got all these pagan bumper stickers on it.
Oh, yeah.
To me, this is attention-seeking behavior.
My other car is a broomstick.
Yeah. I don't know about other temples, but, I know in our temple, we're pretty low-key.
It's a mystery religion.
Right.
For many reasons.
For many reasons. We don't stand out. We're no different than anybody else.
And we typically don't want to shout it out to everybody coming, whatever.
No, I mean, religion to me is a personal and private thing.
Yeah.
I get more bothered by that person at work or in this place that just wants to talk about the religion all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting back thinking, okay, if I do that, I'm going to get persecuted.
That's right.
We believe in this country that, we have freedom of religion on paper. But how much freedom do we actually have? I've known many of temples, and I've heard some horror stories about some of the stuff that's happened. I know a lot of people will hear that and go, oh, no, that was a long time ago and people didn't understand, blah, blah, blah. It still happens today. You've got families living in certain areas, and no, they can't go into their backyard and do ritual. Because as soon as they do, and if they got kids, the neighbors are calling DSS on them, social services on the parents, saying, oh, no, they were out there, they were killing pigeons or turkeys or whatever, devil worshiping stuff. That can't be good for these kids. And unfortunately, once you get caught into that cycle, always that in the back of their minds.
Or you could lose your job.
Yeah. Nobody ever gets fired for being a certain religion. Nobody ever gets fired for being gay.
No, of course not.
There's always another excuse. Your work performance ain't been that great.
You come in late yesterday.
You came in late. You never get fired for this. If you think about it this way, if people at work found out about your religion, and then it suddenly becomes a hostile environment, where it's not necessarily completely hostile, it's just nobody ever talks to you or snubs you or gives you flippant answers all of a sudden, why would you want to be there anyway?
Right.
People suddenly starting to treat you different.
What do you think that is?
People have biases. Everybody has a bias somewhere along the lines. Everybody. Regardless if it's religion or whatever. Everybody has biases. It's different when you recognize that bias and you try your best not to do it. In our culture, or at least in our temple culture, we have this really good foundation in which we have to keep our word.
Mm-hmm.
That expectation is always there. So if you sit there and say you're going to call back in 2 minutes, you're going to call back in 2 minutes, which often makes us very careful about what we say and how we say it.
Yes, it does.
But when you get used to that, when you're in your household and around people all the time that know this and behave this way, when you go into a work situation and in the back of your head you got to keep your word and your boss asks you to do something, you do it, or you're some type of supervisor or something, you ask an employee to do something, they say, yeah, blah, 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 and run off and never do it, it gets me a little upset. And then I have to remind myself, they're not us. I cannot hold them to the same standard.
That's good.
Is this fair to us? Because if they come and ask us to do something, we tell them we will, we do it. Let's ask that question. If someone of non-craft asks you to do something and you give your word, do you have to keep it?
Yes, I gave my word.
You gave your word. Because to us, it doesn't matter if they are craft or if they're not.
It's about me. As a person, I gave my word.
Right. I've had one in particular that realized this about the culture I was living in and doing and used that to his advantage quite a lot. If I can just get him to say yes,
right?
I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can go on a 3-week hiatus and I know it will get done. He'll stay there until, midnight making sure it got done. Even though I think we're getting off topic here a little bit, but...
Good topic, though.
But literally somebody outside of craft telling me, okay, you can't practice this. I'm still like, yeah, but you're not part of craft either, so how can you tell me what I can and can't do?
Well, I think with us, and I can only speak for us, but with us, there's 2 things here. One, because we are a Celtic tradition, there's a lot of Celtic history that we're trained in, that we study. to know why we're doing certain things. Your big thing is to know why you're doing something.
Right.
So whatever deity or whatever colors or symbols that you wanted to use, why? What's the history there?
Let me give you an example here. You know, how temple functions like this. Okay, in Lord Men's lecture series, there was a lot of Native American stuff, which he learned through Lord Foxfire, Lord Nikita Foxfire, who was Native American.
Okay.
He was a part of temple. I never actually taught this stuff because I'm not Native American. So I took it out of my lecture series and replaced it with more Celtic stuff. Well, until he passed away, if anybody wanted to know more about Native American stuff and stuff like that, I could send them to him. That was his field of expertise. You know, it's like Lady Abba is from Sicily descent. She brings us Strega.
Well, what if you wanted to study Roman, or you wanted to work with the Roman deity, and we don't have a Roman person? They would be studying, learning history.
Right. Still, even then, this is all still brought in. I mean, we're still showing it the same reverence we do our own customs.
I think it's just important, not just us, but anybody practicing a religion know what and why they're doing, as opposed to going through the well, I was taught this. I seen my mother do it. I seen my grandmother do it. This is just what we do. Why?
It still always comes back to why. But, I mean, if you think about it this way, if I had someone come to the temple and their background was in voodoo, they would be welcome just as much as anybody else. Because, I mean, still the concept is that no matter what in the world you believe, when we come together as a group, here's what we're going to do when we're together. Now, if the person is practicing voodoo, who's a member of temple, comes to me and goes, hey, I'd like to do a voodoo ritual for this particular full moon or Sabbath, I don't have a problem with that. But there is still going to be some of that structure of what we're going to do when we're together.
Because that's what we are.
Because that's what we are. And then that person themselves will be more likely the person leading ritual that night.
So you can appreciate, or we can appreciate, anybody's individuality.
Right.
And maybe learn something.
Maybe learn something.
So you don't feel like you're a gatekeeper to Wicca or paganism or witchhood?
No. The only thing I gatekeep is our traditional mysteries. That's what we all do. But as you spend time in temple and you move up in degrees, you're going to learn those things.
But not the outside person.
Not the outside person, no. Anybody can come and take our first degree classes, because we tell everybody up front, just because you take our classes does not guarantee initiation. That is a spiritual matter, if you want to get initiated or not. We've had people in that have came to temple, done all 13 lectures, and decided not to, for whatever reason.
Would you be offended if they took what they learned, twisted it and turned it around and gave it different flavor and made their own temple?
No. Why would I? You know, the only thing I would tell that individual is that the only thing that individual can say, and I'd make sure they understood this, is I studied here and finished these courses or this lecture series. They could not go and say, hey, look, I did this and now I'm a member or first degree of Life Temple and Seminary. Because until you do that initiation, you're not.
But as far as witchhood itself, you're not a gatekeeper. You don't feel like you're a gatekeeper.
No, I don't.
Even if someone said, I'm a Celtic witch and I worship Nawada, and to me, he's a dwarf and he's got 3 heads, and I put him in my pocket and I carry him around, and that's Nawada. You're okay with that?
Who am I to judge?
Well, history tells us that's incorrect information.
Well, if that's what the person wants to believe, that they can.
More power to you.
Maybe you need to read a little bit more, history or myth, but okay.
If you think Nawada's going to be okay being a dwarf, good for you.
Good for you. I'm not going to stop you.
Well, what if I came in and said, I have no history in Hindu or Buddhism. I have no history there. I know very little. But I came in and said, I found on the internet this Hindu or this Buddhist way of meditating, and this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're going to try to do, or this is what we're going to talk about. Would you, great, that's wonderful, or would it be you need to study up on this and learn why they're doing it this way, why they're doing this?
That sounds more like me. I'm going to say you might want to study up on this. Just reading one website or one book.
Yeah, YouTube video.
That's not enough.
Because of the religious cultural appropriation?
Well, no, you just need to know why you're doing it that way. Accepting something at face value without knowing why can lead down some, next thing you know, you could be wind up drinking Kool-Aid.
Lead down the road to Kool-Aid.
Yeah, with not a happy ending.
So you just don't get on board with the religious cultural appropriation?
No, I don't see where it's relevant. I've seen and heard of people that were this, then became that. I've heard some people who have been Wiccan and decided to switch back over to Christianity. I've taught people who used to be Catholic and now they're this.
But they're studying it.
They're learning it.
What about people who don't? They just wake up one day and go, yep, I am a witch and my name is, like you like to say, Lady Greenbean.
Lady Greenbean?
Yeah.
So I do have a problem with the whole Lord and Lady thing. Because, Lord and Lady are titles. They are earned titles. In our tradition, you get those at second degree, and that's after quite a number of years of study and service to the religion and some other requirements being made. You're not
blood,
just
sweat, and tears.
So that person that wakes up and goes, hey, yeah, today I'm going to be a witch. Okay, who am I to tell them they're not? Is it necessarily going to make them a good witch because they just woke up and read one book? Not necessarily.
Would they be a witch?
Oh, you're pushing that, ain't you?
Yes, I am.
Unfortunately, in my mind, no, they're not. I truly, truly believe it takes a witch to make a witch. There is something about that initiation process that changes you.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. Like everybody else, I started off solitary and still had questions and kept on reading books after books after books and kept on seeing the same thing missing over and over again. And if there's nobody around you or anything like that, I can understand that where you're isolated. But I'm sorry, with the internet and stuff like that, if it's really what you want, yeah, you're going to drive 2-4 hours to go take these classes.
Yeah.
It's so much of an inconvenience to drive 2 or 3 hours to go take a class. Are you sure this is the right path for you?
Right.
How bad do you really want it? Me personally, when I met Lord Men and did convince him to finally teach me, driving once a month to his place, which was 2 or 3 hours away, I did. Wholeheartedly. Didn't think about it because I wanted it that bad. So, yeah, every so often I get these people that call up and go, hey, can I take classes, blah, blah, blah. Hey, the closest person I have to you is 2 or 3 hours away. Oh.
Mm-mm. It's not a religion to take lightly.
Finding a good temple out there sometimes or a good coven or a good teacher is really hard to find.
Yes, it is.
Not that I'm putting myself up on no pedestal or anything.
All
right. But my point there is, yeah, you might have to drive out of your way. But to me, it also shows your dedication to the religion to begin with.
Well, it's not an easy religion. It's not sunshine and crystals and beautiful moment all the time. You got to work on it. You got to work hard on it.
Yeah. This is not a religion for the masses.
No, it's not.
If it was that easy, everybody would do it. We have concepts and ideas that are at the core of our beliefs that can take some people years to deal with.
Or continuously deal. That's their life now.
Continuously. And when we're sitting back going, hey, this is what you're going to have to do. Now, with that said, we're not asking you to do anything that we haven't done ourselves.
Right.
Or still not doing it, ourselves.
Well, you don't give anything out. You don't give it away. It has to be earned.
Yes.
So I know, especially with our temple, I know that if I'm talking to a lord or lady, they've earned that title. They've worked hard for that title.
Yes. And yeah, it does bother me for a little bit to think that somebody woke up yesterday and went, oh, I'm going to call myself Lady Greenbean.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lord Greenbean. And that's it. And it took me 10 years just to get the second degree. Then it took me so much longer to get the third degree.
It's hard. The point is we work hard for it.
I mean, but that's what you're going to get out of most traditional temples or covens, is there's them guideposts. There's somebody there that's already gone through it to kind of help you out.
Keep you between the ditches.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to do it for you. And they might not always give you the answer you want, but they're going to give you the answer you need.
Yes, that's true. So that's offensive to you.
I don't want to say it's offensive. It just grinds my gears.
It's offensive. Say it.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to sit there and, hoop and holler and scream and yell and all that. It's just going to be, yeah, okay.
Would you call them Lord or Lady?
I do not know. I would probably try my best to avoid saying their name.
Hey, you. Hey, stranger.
Because you got to also think about it this way. Most people who have that title of Lord or Lady do not ever actually introduce themselves as Lord or Lady.
Nope. Or you haven't.
Well, I mean, that's part of our protocol. We don't do it. If I have to do it myself, it's considered more arrogant.
Right. I can see that.
Which is funny because I can introduce myself as Chase Knight-Smith, 3rd degree of Life Temple and Seminary.
But not Lord Knight.
Right. In our custom, as soon as you hear that, you know that person's at least 2nd degree or higher.
Right.
Like in our protocol, the first people, when you come in the temple, you automatically greet before anybody else is the Lady of Temple. Then you go see the Lord.
And point me to the elders.
Yeah.
Just the general direction. And I'll try to make do once I see them. Yeah, that is interesting. Huh. So if you're going to introduce yourself, you leave the Lord out.
Right.
But you add all 3 names in there.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I add all 3 names in there is because somebody else could be named Knight.
But you don't put the Lord.
But I don't put the Lord in there.
But you do put the 3rd degree.
I do put the 3rd degree in there.
That's so weird.
Like, if I go to do a lecture, which I've been known to do, if I go do a lecture somewhere, I will get up there and introduce myself if I do not have anybody else with me. Now, luckily, when I do most of these, especially if I'm going to university or somewhere like that, the teacher of the class will introduce me. Now, they'll put the Lord on there, but me, myself, no.
Is that your personal thought, or is that a protocol thing?
It is a protocol thing, and it's also my personal preference. Walking up to somebody going, hey, I'm Lord Knight-Smith. I mean, that's like me saying, hey, yeah, I'm somebody important, where me personally, I don't think I'm that important. You know, you got people out there in the craft community at large, and they got egos as big as
my house.
Bigger.
And it's interesting because I know these people, they've had the training, they've had the practice, they've earned their titles. I just don't know where their ego is coming from. I don't know how that happens. You beat it out of us.
I try. I don't always succeed.
And you most definitely don't have an ego.
I try not to.
You don't. You're oddly humble.
You're sitting there and you're talking to somebody or something, and they just say something or do something, and it's hard not to be kind of all superior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they're rambling on about some concept that they barely even grasp.
Right.
And you're like, you're missing so much. To them, it might seem, not as important as it does to me, but me sitting there going, there's a whole lot more behind that statement than just that.
Well, I know with your students and with your members, you'll definitely call them out and go, wait a minute, why? Or what else? Or what does that mean? So the person who's not your student, not part of your coven, you wouldn't call them out?
Probably not.
You would just,
Well, I mean, it's more along the lines of, it's my dog, I'll kick it.
And you do.
Because with y'all, I know what I've trained y'all to do.
And what we should know.
And what you should know, and what expectations are there. It's not like I'm blindsiding y'all with something you don't know. So it's hard when you're dealing with people outside of either traditional or just completely solitary and don't have a freaking clue.
But do you like dealing with people like that?
I don't mind it. The ones that want to act a little arrogant and stuff can get a little on my nerves because they don't want to listen to the voice of experience, I guess, or somebody else's viewpoint.
You're somebody that might know more than they do?
Well, I'm not going to say that. I wanted to say a difference of viewpoint. I mean, because, for years, me and Lord Raceland, he used to think we had different viewpoints of stuff. And it wasn't until Lady Alba came around to where, they were sitting there one day talking about some stuff, and she's just like, he teaches us the same thing. He might not word it the way you do, but the same concept. It's where the concept's more important sometimes than what you're actually saying or how you're saying it.
Well, that's a good thing, though. To have a different view or a different way to say it or whatever. That's a good thing.
Right. Because, I'll be sitting there teaching somebody, especially if I'm teaching a crowd, and, I might say something, and I'll see that 1,000-yard stare in some people. And I'll go back and try to explain it a different way. If they don't get it, I'll try again. Normally after the, second or third attempt, you start seeing some of them start going, oh, okay. There might be that one person later that just I've completely boggled that I might have to move on from that subject just to get the class done and get with them later one-on-one.
The same thing has happened. You've been teaching me, and I just couldn't catch whatever it was you were saying. You'd reword it, like, no, don't get it. You'd draw a picture, no, don't get it. And then Oswin would come in and go, okay, think about it like this.
Right.
So every once in a while, having someone else come in helps. Especially with the thicker people.
Well, I don't want to say thicker, it's just the difference in learning.
There's always that one thing that you just can't get. You just can't grasp it.
I mean, it's like, me coming in there and suddenly going, hey, we're going to talk about some quantum physics today. Then you come in and you're kind of like, okay, I thought I was learning witchcraft. Why in the world are we going over quantum physics?
Yes.
What do you want me to say?
You do put physics in there,
I do. I know actually we talk more about quantum physics than we do physics.
You don't call it that.
No.
It'd scare people. They'd run for the door.
Run for the door.
Quantum physics, I got to go.
No, you're sitting there talking about string theory and all this other stuff, and I know at first, some people will sit there and go, what does this have to do with witchcraft? Normally by the time I get done explaining it, everybody's like, oh, okay.
Usually.
Some people, who remain nameless, Keegan, will sit there and go, huh?
What?
What?
Draw me a picture. Dumb it down for me. Way down.
Or just look at me and go, I was an English major, not a science major.
You, on the other hand, you want to throw that science out there all the time.
Well, I mean, the two are not necessarily separate. Well, I'm out of coffee.
Oh, I've been out of coffee.
Thank you for listening to Pagan Coffee Talk. I hope you join us next week.
We travel down this trodden path, the maze of stone and mire. Just hold my hand as we pass by a sea of blazing pyres. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks. And so it is the end of our days, so walk with me till morning breaks.